In this episode, I want to talk about reflection and camera projection, and that is of course a big theme when you want to create a complete city landscape. And when we have objects, of course, with windows, or when the whole facade is just a big mirror, then any image that you take, any single image that you take, will capture exactly the reflection from one point in time and from one position, exactly this. Or maybe you are a little bit on a different position than this. And as a result, if you project then this image to this cube here, is exactly what you get here. It looks like painted on the cube. There is no reflection that moves smoothly with the camera then. And exactly there's the problem with camera projection. Anything that has a dependency on the camera position, and the camera means here the camera that I have in the scene of Cinema 4D. In the moment that change, anything that is static, like from a camera projection, will give it away when we have the need for an interaction there, for a change, of course. So this cube would work nicely. And the only difference that I have here is one time the cube is just a reflective material, and one time it is just an image wrapped around this cube. So I put this by side for a moment. What I have here is of course just an panorama, and I want to show you that. We have seen this in the HDRI series, of course. If you haven't seen it, I want to open that for you. Open window here, and here we have it. This is an so-called 360 by 180, and some people like to call it 360 by 360, but that is, I have to say it, not correct. When we go from pole to pole, from the top to the bottom, then we have only 180 degrees. And when we go from one side or one point on the sphere over the equator to the other side, where the point touches the first point, that is 360. If the vertical line would be 360, then we had sky, then the soil again, and then sky again. That wouldn't work very well. And so this is a 360 by 180. And normally we have to flip-sided it. So we take a look here. That is normally done with length U to negative 100%, or we use the tile U to negative 1. Just the dash in and everything is done. Except when you use a chrome sphere to get an image like this, then it's mostly naturally already reflected and mirror-sided in that case. So we have to go back to the chalkboard because I want to explain something, and that's very important to know. When we take our image, and let's say we have our camera here, here's the lens, and we look in this direction. Then we have a facade here, maybe exactly like this. And we want to say we have here a big window in it. So we have a lens that has maybe this field of view that equals then an image that looks maybe perhaps like this. Here's the facade, and this is pretty close to the floor, so maybe this is even a little bit more steep. And here in the middle we have that big window. Everything is reflective. Okay, so what I need here is of course now that we have here an angle in that goes here from the camera, and then it goes pretty much from here, I would think something like this out. So and then we have on the other edge of that window, the other extreme, so we have this here as angle, and again angle in, and then angle out goes then maybe in this way. So whatever is in this area here that I mark now will be reflected from that window, and that goes right in front of that window. So if we have now something here that should be visible in the window, let's say that's our red sphere again, then in this window here we would have that little guy. Okay, so when we have photographed this and we want to have in Cinema 4D an animation with this camera here, it starts here. Let's put here the box to that. and we have the box here. Then we look to this object and we move around. But the problem is, of course, that the reflection here at the moment is just an image. And so we would see all the time this red ball, even if when we go with the angle in, angle out rule, the first camera should see, of course, something that is more in this area here. And the last one goes from here to here, angle in, angle out. It goes then to something like here. So it moves here around. We would see something that is here in the first picture and something that is here in the last picture, not in the second. And in the middle, pretty much here, we see the red ball again. It's not red here, I know. So we have a problem, and as I have illustrated that wouldn't work. So we have to paint that window here completely black in an extra image. We can take this camera position here that we have used for the projection, take another picture, or as I will show you, we can also go perpendicular to this facade, and then we get an image that looks in this way. It's just straight. And then we take a mask here, paint this white, everything else is black, and we project then this on the facade. We go into detail, of course, during the production part of this series to that. And then we can define, based on that texture, that this area here and this area here is not reflective, but this is reflective. And then we have the need to have exactly something that is in Cinema 4D, because this area here was in reality. That's not longer available, and we have shot only one image. So we have to produce something, and normally this is a 360 by 180 and a panorama, or we shoot just from a very specific position and we try to get exactly this area here again into the picture. As this building is in the way, we would have maybe the need to get something done. It's not always that simple. So how is finally the reflection in the best way? Should we shoot an HDRI 360 times 180, or from this position where the window is, or where should that be? Normally the camera, when it is reflected, has a mirror axis exactly where the facade is here. So this camera here, if we want to shoot the reflection directly without going through the window, then the extension of these axes here gives me then exactly the camera, which is mirror-sided here to this facade when we take this here as the axis. This camera, if I can have that position and have not the building in the front, then I would get here the whole picture, and I could use this on a plane or a sphere and shoot exactly this. Sometimes it's possible that we can go on a building or on a higher building in the background and shoot from this position here exactly as 360 one time around, and then we have everything perfect for that window. This is pretty much the standard plan. Doesn't work all the time in that way, and so we have a problem. Then we can say it starts here. So this is our main idea where we have to shoot. And this is not the best idea, but most of the time the only way to do it. We position ourselves here where the main reflection is, and we start shooting several pictures, and we stitch them together to get from this point here a 360 around. And that should work pretty much, especially if the window is not just a flat thingy, because most of the time they are just a little bit bumpy, banded or whatever. You see that when you drive in a car very fast on a house, there's a lot of movement in the reflection, and that is mostly because there's a vacuum between two planes or so. And so there's a lot of wiggle room between, especially with motion blur, and so because the speed in the reflection is mostly twice when you have something like this here that goes here pretty fast. As you can see, we have this distance, so the speed, the motion blur is much higher in the reflection from this here than the whole facade itself. Many things to consider. But these would be my consideration. Find a spot that comes very close to this position, and if it is higher, you can project this, and the projection will give you mainly, not 100%, exactly that back. Yeah, mainly exactly. You see, you get my point. And the other way is, of course, in front of this part, and then get an 180 at least, and try to project this then on geometry here. And this geometry shouldn't be seen by the camera, only seen by the reflection and refraction eventually. And that sums it up pretty much, because we have to deal with all of these things on a very individual basis. And when we deal with those things, we have to always make a little sketch like this one here and have the rule angle in, angle out in mind. And of course, that every reflection gives me pretty much the camera where I have to shoot from when we take this axis here into account. Thanks for listening. Have fun with it. Bye bye.